In February 2023, a gruesome killing hounded an upscale neighborhood in Hong Kong. Abby Choi, a young, promising, and successful model, was murdered not by a masked stranger but by familiar faces. Tune in to this episode of Kriminal, now a true crime podcast. Later, we have a special treat from today's sponsor, Prime Video. I am Jairo Bolledo, Rappler's crime reporter. Today, let's talk about Abby Choi's murder case. Socialite, model, and Instagram star, this is how people used to describe Abby Choi from Hong Kong. But in February 2023, Choi made headlines, not because of her celebrity status, but because of her murder. Choi was first reported missing on February 22, where she was supposed to pick up her daughter from school. But Choi never appeared. Then days later, authorities discovered her headless body in a village house in a suburb in Hong Kong. Not only that, some parts of her dismembered body were reportedly cooked, while some were kept in the refrigerator. The local police also discovered human flesh in 2 pots of soup. They also discovered minced human flesh on the ground of the house. Authorities later analyzed the soup, as well as a skull and several ribs that were also discovered. The back of the skull had a hole, and authorities said this could possibly be the blow that killed the model. Police also discovered Choi's purse, ID, and credit cards in the apartment where her dismembered parts were discovered. What was more shocking was when authorities revealed that Choi's own ex-husband was among the people behind the gruesome killing. Local police said Choi's ex-husband, Alex Kwong, and his father Kwong Kao and older brother Anthony Kwong planned and carried out the model's murder. As early as February, the authorities said the three rented an apartment and turned it into a quote-unquote splatter-proof body disposal workshop where Choi's remains were later found. Police Superintendent Alan Chung Ngalun said the apartment was arranged, quote-unquote, meticulously by the cold-blooded killers. The police also discovered tools like meat grinders, chainsaws, long raincoats, gloves, and masks inside the apartment. Chang Ngalun added the alleged killers covered the apartment walls with a sail and used face shields and raincoats to avoid getting stained by Choi's blood. The police believed Choi was attacked while on board a 7-seater van. The authorities filed murder charges against Alex and his family. The model's mother-in-law, Jenny Lee Swee Hoon, is also charged with perverting the course of justice because she allegedly destroyed evidence. Anthony, Kao, and Lee were immediately arrested. But Alex was only apprehended by the authorities when he was caught trying to board a speedboat to escape from Hong Kong. The authorities arrested Alex with around $64,000 and another $510,000 worth of luxury watches. Before we continue, BrandRap members Armand de la Cruz and Giselle Barrientos are taking us through the fictional tale of the Cattleya Killer.
The details of the case you're about to hear are purely fictional.
This is the case of the Cattleya Killer and his, quote, copycat, as told in Prime Video's new series, The Cattleya Killer.
I'm Armand de la Cruz.
And I'm Giselle Barrientos.
So, The Cattleya Killer, it's coming out at a good time. There's a certain fascination with true crime and mysteries like this, with stories that follow policemen investigating possibly supernatural occult things, also psychological cases like these. We've had a lot of truth-based films and features, but not really a lot of episodic series. But with Cattleya Killer, we're getting 6 episodes, about 14 minutes each, and with this, we can immerse ourselves with the mystery and the development of characters that will follow through this series as well.
What's exciting about seeing this kind of story in an episodic way is that you really get to dive deep into the psyche of the people, not only the killer that we're looking at. We're also seeing what's happening behind the scenes, the team investigating it, the people around them as well. So it's entertaining to see, perhaps, how everything, kung paano gumagalaw yung cogs, kumbaga, and how everything is like a domino effect of one thing that goes into another. So it's very exciting.
But before we dive into the story, let's rewind back in time and talk about the prequel to the Prime Video series. So it's 1996, and you're in the theater, captivated by a handsome and mysterious man with a sinister vibe. Gene Rivera draws the audience in with his charm in the film Sa Aking Mga Kamay, but he is more than a character with boyish good looks. After all, he is a serial killer who hunts beautiful but unfaithful women. So what he does is he leaves his mark, a Cattleya flower, on the bodies of the victim. So meanwhile, our hero in the film is Joven de la Rosa, an investigator who tirelessly trails the clues left by Gene Rivera, our killer. And when Joven finally solves the crime, he thought the nightmares would end there.
But the truth is, they didn't. The nightmares continue, inherited by Anton de la Rosa, Joven's son. In Prime Video's Cattleya Killer, Anton finds out that a copycat may be continuing where Gene Rivera left off when a new body is discovered with a Cattleya flower left on the victim's face. Anton follows the footsteps of his father and tries to solve the crime himself, despite his superiors telling him not to. But somehow, as the investigations get tighter, clues lead other officers to him instead. His obsession over the case isn't helped by the fact that he's been having hallucinations, making it hard for him to determine what's real or not. And to make matters even more confusing, Anton isn't aware of how deep his real connections are to the case.
So guys, if you haven't watched Cattleya Killer, make sure to watch it first on Prime Video and then come back to this video. We'll be touching on some spoilers in this episode. So Gene Rivera is the original Cattleya Killer from the 1996 film, and he preyed on beautiful women and would leave a Cattleya flower. Same in the cases here in this series. However, the difference with those cases was that Gene Rivera actually preyed on unfaithful women who were also married. In this series, the copycat Cattleya Killer preyed on beautiful women also, but they are single and aged 31. So those are the differences and the similarities of the cases.
Meron din na the new killer is really more careful with their bodies. The original killer, si Gene, he didn't do it symmetrically, whereas the new killer is. So I think dun pa lang may nakikita na tayo, may insight na tayo into the psyche of this new killer, na he's only inspired by it. So I think very clear din sa original kung ano ba yung motive niya. He's punishing unfaithful women. But for this one, we don't know. And the fact na may reverence pa siya to the bodies, it's quite twisted.
So the story revolves around the De La Rosa family, and the existing members of that family, of course, is Joven de la Rosa, who is the former lead investigator to the original Cattleya Killer case in the 90s film. He's now the deputy director of the police force, and all throughout the series, medyo merong resistance siya to the idea of his son, who is also a quite skilled detective, from solving the crimes of this particular case. And he reminds his son that the case isn't part of his assignment and that there are other cases that he needs to focus on. The truth, however, is Joven really wants to keep his son from uncovering uncovering a lie that he probably told his son. And Joven is actually played by Christopher De Leon, who reprises his role from the original film.
Right.
Then, of course, there's Benji, who is played very ably by Jake Cuenca. He really puts the camp and the mania to the character, and he is the eldest son of Joven, who his character is also part of the original film.
Mm-hmm.
So it's Joven's son grown up. And he is all successful now, all grown. He has multiple companies and runs a foundation for traumatized women. And we can deduce from basically what happened in the first film that he's doing this in honor of his mom, who is a survivor of the infamous Cattleya Killer. And of course, there's also Anton de la Rosa, who is the youngest son. He's a new character. He makes his debut in this series, and Basically, he followed his father's footsteps to becoming an investigator. Ang problema niya, however, is that he keeps seeing hallucinations and seems to be losing his mind. He's taunted with visions and hallucinations of the original killer, the Cattleya Killer, who is Jean Rivera in the original film. So now, all of these members of the De La Rosa family, you can say, have their own obsessions. No? So, of course, si Joven, being the patriarch, is obsessed with protecting his family and his sons. Anton is obsessed with becoming a successful investigator. And Benji is just obsessed.
I would agree. Yes. And I think when we're talking about the De La Rosa family, I would say merong an overlooked part of the family, which is Camille De La Rosa, who is their mother. So, syempre, she's still a driving force in the motivations of each and every man of the De La Rosa family. So, even though she doesn't appear in the series, I think na she's a character you can't really forget as they go along making their decisions.
And other than them, there are also new characters
Yes.
in the series. Una dyan, of course, si Tina Galvez, played by Jane Oineza, who is a fellow investigator on the case. Rigor Salas, who is sort of Anton's duo in the force. They work on cases together quite a lot. And there's also Demet Noble, who is another investigator, played by the great Ricky Davao, who plays a crucial role as well in the story.
And outside of the investigative team, we also have Aurora or Auri Melendres, who's played by Jaja Padilla. So she works with Benji in the foundation that they run for traumatized women, and also, interestingly, is the therapist of Anton, and also is the love interest of Joven. So she's very intertwined with the family, I would say. But I don't know, when you watch the series, I feel like she's also chained by all of these relationships. So another character to watch out for in the series. Of course, we have Jean Rivera, who in this series is played by Ryan Eigenman, as opposed to the original's Agamulak. So he makes a few appearances in the story. Is he back? We won't tell. You'll have to find that out for yourself in the show. But of course, Ryan Eigenman did an amazing job, portraying the character and taking on, filling in the shoes that Agamulak first wore and first brought to life in the original.
That's an interesting insight, the female characters seem to be driving forces in the story, even though they exist mostly in the periphery of the story, kasi it's really all about the De La Rosa men.
Yes.
But at the same time, they're very much influenced by the women in their lives, which is something that should happen naman, because it's really playing on the killer's fascination with women. And as audiences, we should have clues as to why the killer probably find these women fascinating. Hindi sila playthings or hindi sila plot devices.
I would also consider the cinematography and the tonality of the show as an invisible character, which actually I do appreciate, kasi that does show the technical skill of Filipino storytellers na nakikita mo naapektuhan ka talaga just from the scoring itself to the pacing.
So yeah, this series is directed actually by Irene Villamor and Dan Villegas, and it's gritty and suspenseful, and I also wanna give flowers to the writer, of course, Dodo Dayao, who basically wrote this front to end. So, Cattleya Killer, the series that follows the 90s film sa Aking Mga Kamay, is now available on Prime Video. Just go to primevideo.com to stream the show. Now, back to Jairo.
Before her death, Choi was a celebrated icon in Hong Kong. She was born of a rich family who ran a construction business with links to China. Her friends and family described Choi as a supportive and kind person. Choi, despite her young age, was reported to have a net worth of 100 million Hong Kong dollars. She regularly attended Paris Fashion Week. Choi's followers enjoyed her elegant style through her social media posts and photo shoots. The model was also featured in fashion magazines like Vogue and Elle. Before her death, Choi appeared on the cover of L'Officiel Monaco for its February issue. The magazine labeled Choi as quote-unquote one of the most sought-after influencers in the industry. L'Officiel Monaco also praised her style and called her a trendsetter. In 2012, Choi married Alex and they had 2 sons together. But in 2016, the couple parted ways and Choi started a relationship with another man, Cruz, and had 2 children too. Despite their divorce, Choi and Alex remained close. The police said Choi even bought a luxury apartment in Hong Kong's exclusive Cadbury Hill neighborhood for Alex's family after the divorce. The apartment was bought under the name of her former father-in-law, Guang Kao. However, the police said this relationship turned sour when Choi planned to sell the apartment while promising to buy the Kwongs a new home. Police allege this triggered the plot to kill Choi. At present, the trial in relation to Choi's death continues. Now, Choi's children with Tam face another legal hurdle. It might take 4 to 5 years before they can inherit their mother's fortune. The inheritance has yet to be released because Choi did not register her marriage with Tam, the authorities said. Meanwhile, Choi's mother, Chung Yun-fa, filed a petition before a court to prevent Choi's former father-in-law from selling the Cadbury Hill apartment. Choi's mother also wanted to declare her daughter the beneficial owner of the contested apartment. Despite the generosity Choi showed to her former husband and his family, she met her death in their hands. If you have suggested topics for this show, you can message me at my Twitter account at Jairo Giorno or send me an email at jairo.bolledo@rappler.com. The crime scene is just the beginning. We tell you the full story here in Kriminal, Rappler's true crime podcast. Thank you for watching. See you next time.